Stephanie, so we could probably go ahead and get ready or get started.
Yep. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the December Medina County Safety Council meeting. We are so excited that you are with us today. Just as a reminder, we will be recording this and they will go up on our website. So if you have missed any of our other virtual meetings, they are all located on our website. I'll pop that information in the chat box in a few minutes. So if you are looking for those, you can find them there. We're asking you to keep yourselves on mute and also to keep your video off. If you do have questions though, throughout any of the presentation, please feel free to pop them into the chat box and Carrie and myself can fill those as we go along. So Carrie will do her normal updates. Then we'll have our presentation today. We'll do Q&A and then we will adjourn. So I am going to throw things over to Carrie.
Awesome. Well, great. All right. Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone. Hopefully you have your holiday hat on. I don't have mine on yet all the way because it's too tall and you wouldn't see it on my screen, but hopefully y'all have it on. I'm assuming you do since we can't see your camera, so I'll just assume that. My name's Carrie Gray. I am the BWC safety consultant that works with all of Medina County. You're all stuck with me. And just a couple updates and a couple things that's going on with the BWC as we close out the calendar year. First of all, I'm still here. Obviously, you're stuck with me. I'm still here. We are opening up a little bit so I can do some stuff in person, and we're still doing a lot virtually though, whenever we can, just because it saves a lot of travel and a lot of time. But I am going on site, so if you have something going on or you want somebody to come out and do any kind of walkthrough, just let me know. Send me an email, and my contact information is on another slide at the end, and I'll throw it in the chat box too as we go. We do have a bunch of webinars coming up. The special investigation one is recorded, so if you have fraud questions, you can look at that one. It's recorded on our website. But we have a lot coming up in January, so you will be able to see a whole lot of stuff, including a record keeping one. But I'm actually doing a record keeping one. I'll show you in a couple slides too. So those are the BWC ones. The next slide is going to have a list of all the classes. You can see most of those we're looking at January going forward. Nothing really now from now to the end of the year. January going forward, all these classes are free. They're all still virtual. Hopefully after the beginning of the new program year, which starts in July, same for Safety Council, we'll be having some of those in person. And hopefully Safety Council will be in person. We'll have to see what that looks like too. We're all crossing our fingers hoping that happens. The next slide just shows you a couple of the resources that are available to you. And I know I bring these up every single meeting, but one thing that's really pressing right now and something that's going to start coming across my desk is all the claims that happen in the Can't Service office. We do get to see them. They come across my desk, and soon we're going to start seeing lots of slip, trips, and falls because of snow and ice. And so what I'm encouraging all my folks to do is there's a new snow and ice micro training video, and it's like 3.5 minutes. It's really short, basic, to the point, and it's just some safety tips that your folks can do to help prevent those slip, trips, and falls in snow and ice. So I'm encouraging folks to push that out to their employees, have them watch that YouTube video. I'll throw that link in the chat as well. But I'm encouraging folks, just push that out, have your folks watch it, and hopefully we can help prevent some of those types of injuries. The next slide is showing record keeping open house. So I did this last year, and I did it with all the local safety councils here, some at Medina and Stark and Eastern Stark and Portage, inviting everybody again. And I'm going to do a little overview on OSHA record keeping, 20 minutes maybe. You're going to get some information. It's actually in, when you register, you're going to get some information like the cheat sheet and the sheet to figure out your injury rates. And then it's just going to be a Q&A. And so I'm going to try to get a couple other consultants there, and we can answer questions in chat. And as you ask them, I'll be able to answer questions, and you can come and go as you please, kind of just like an open house. So, but it will be virtual. So know that that's coming on January 31st. And hopefully it'll be last minute questions when your log's already ready, because you're going to have it posted February 1st, like you have to. But just an opportunity to get stuff checked. Or you can always send me your logs, and I can look over them and send you some information about that too. All right. So the last slide that I have up here talks about really what we've been talking about since July. since July, we've been talking about OSHA's top 10. And actually for 2021, OSHA's top 10 is out. Now, OSHA runs October to October, so that's why it's out already. And if you guys get the National Safety Council Safety and Health magazine, the big article in there this month is all about OSHA's top 10. And they're pretty much the same. And they're pretty much the same year over year over year. And so that means this is what OSHA is finding the most common. This is what folks have serious injuries on and they have to contact OSHA about. And this is where a lot of money is going from employers' pockets to the federal government because there's a lot of issues with this. Now, Lockout Tag Out is number 6, and it stays number 6. And Tracy's going to talk about that in just a minute. That one didn't move. Respirator moved up, but everything else, this is the stuff that we've been talking about all year. So I really encourage everybody, if you're in the planning stage for 2022, and I sure hope you are, maybe you've already done that, these topics that are applicable to you, that you have in your location, make sure that these are topics that you're doing training on, that you're evaluating your programs on, that you're doing audits on and set your goals around. That's really what you want to focus on for 2022 if these topics are applicable. Now, there may be a couple that aren't, so you're going to add a couple other topics in there, but you want to be focusing on this stuff for 2022. It's only going to help you. So with that, we can flip to the next slide. And I'm going to turn it over to Tracy, and Tracy's going to talk about big number 6. We're going to talk about Lockout Tag Out and what that means. So Tracy, turn it over to you, and I'm going to let you do your own introduction. But if you guys all could, at the very bottom of your screen, you have a reaction button. So I want you to give a clap, give a warm Medina County Safety Council welcome to Tracy. All right, we're doing that. It's all yours, Tracy.
Thank you very much, Carrie. It's a pleasure to be here for everybody. Some of you might know who I am. I'm actually part of the safety committee for the actual Medina Safety Council. But really the focus here today is being able to give you more resources about one of the more prevalent issues that OSHA is seeing, and that's lockout tag out. Carrie's been pretty I'd say transparent about the top 10, because that is a focus of ours, as well as everyone in safety, that, you know, a lot of this stuff is going on. And what my role with Wichert Insurance is, I do risk management and loss control. So I really do, well, similar to what Carrie would do, and providing a lot of opportunity for people to, you know, help them with their programs, whether it be safety, OSHA related stuff, and even just various topics. It could be fleet and what have you. But today we want to focus on lockout tag out. And so one of the things is that with lockout tag out, I guess one thing you would think about, let's see here. Hey, Stephanie or Carrie, I can't move the slide, so.
Stephanie, do you have a little like back and forth down at the very bottom? Or if you click on the slide, maybe use your down arrow on your screen.
That's what I was doing. Nothing was happening. There we go.
Oh, there it goes.
There we go. Thank you. All right. So, so with lockout tag out, what is the real big deal about this? It's basically one of the more expensive violations that you can have, as well as from an occurrence side. You know, it can be costly because we're not looking at just a small minor injury or anything like that. It can be very fatal. And as you can see with some of the statistics here, you know, over 13,000 per violation, and number 6 in 2020 and 2021. It is a consistent thing. So, you know, I would look at it and think, are you having something like this in your safety program as a lockout tag out program? Do you feel that you need one? So what is lockout? What is lockout tag out? So it's a process of blocking the flow of energy from a source of equipment, keeping it blocked to prevent an injury. Well, maybe we don't necessarily have equipment. So does this really affect us? And really it does, because a lot of this stuff happened back in the early 1990s that they made the first implementation of this standard. So there were so many fatalities, there was so much of occurrence on this that they created this standard, and it does apply to many, many type of industries. So if you think about it, I'll give you an example. This was a maintenance worker at a hospital, for example. So we can have a hospital, we could have a manufacturing facility. But in this case, a hospital where the maintenance worker was on a ladder, changing a ballast light, and unfortunately they fell and they died a month later. Now, in that case, you know, could anything have been prevented? Should they have actually done something? They fell because they got shocked originally. So if that happens, well, wait a minute, can we do anything? Could we shut down the power? Were they what we call taking shortcuts? And so in a lot of this case here, you know, there are safeguards that a lockout tag out program provides your employees from not having any type of injury that could occur, but also prevents most things from happening. So does it apply to you? It does. In many cases, it does. And so one thing you have to think about is, do you have power? Well, do you have electric? Well, you're sitting on your computer. As Carrie one time told me, well, yeah, you probably have an exposure there. Do you have lights? All right. And then do you have gravity? And a lot of this comes down to, are you in a facility that has equipment? Do you have anything that you need to control that somebody can get hurt with? Okay. So, you know, servicing or maintenance is probably one of the most common themes. So, you know, if you have equipment in a facility where, you know, we have a variety of customers or clients and members of our council here that are in the county, that, you know, you have so many types of various things, not everything's the same. So, you know, when you look at it, your equipment, if I work and operate on it to fix something or maintain it, could something happen? And so unplugging it, using the lockout tag out process, that's what is there to help somebody from not injuring themselves. One, even a guard, if you have to bypass a guard or something, a safety measure, that's where this process of lockout tag out comes into play. All right. So one of the areas that does not cover this, and they somewhat have their own in a general duty clause, is construction, agriculture, power generation, transmission, oil and gas, and even live electrical work. They're the ones that they have their own kind of situation that's different. So really, we're talking about a lot of just general industry. It could be office, manufacturing, et cetera. And this is where we want to make sure that we know what we're able to do for people. So in a lockout tag out program, there's 3 people that are affected in your operations. We have what we call authorized folks, we have affected folks, and we have others. So the authorized are the people who are using the lockout and the tag outs daily, right? When they're either performing service or maintenance to equipment, or they're doing something where electrical measures are taking place where we need to either shut things down. We also have affected people. Those are the people who are either normally operating the machines. They might not be the people that are providing the service, but they're the ones that need to know what's going on in case of equipment needs to be taken out of line. And then the other people are the people that are bystanders that work with you, okay? And those are the people that they should be aware of what's going on just for their own general safety while they're in that environment, okay? So a lockout tag out program really should consist of 4 parts. One, written program, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of everything. And then a specific equipment procedures. Those are specifically to what you do and what it's unique for. Now, number 3 is training. That's almost just as important as the equipment procedures, because this is how we're able to inform and give the resources to our employees on how to properly do things, so we don't have any issues and there's no guessing, if you will. And then there's an annual audit. The annual audit is really more to verify and make sure that this program isn't necessarily obsolete over time. You know, maybe you've already had a program in place for years, which is great. However, we really need to make sure that that program has been updated over time, because, well, maybe you've updated equipment, you've updated personnel, for example, things like that. All right. So a written program first really is one, if you never put one together, or if you feel that you maybe want to re-engineer it or re-update it, the easiest source is using Ohio BWC. In this presentation, there's a link there for the written program templates that they have available. I would really strongly encourage you to go to this tool. it does give you kind of that foundation to where then you can customize it to your needs. Okay. And if any by chance you have any other safety consultants, myself, from working within the insurance world, this is what we also help with our clients. So number two is when we get into the procedures of it, and in that written program, this is how we're supposed to work with each piece of equipment or the environment that you're working in, whether it be the electrical or the equipment maintenance. We want to make sure it's well documented, and it's very specific to that equipment. So some machinery is very common and similar, so it's okay to cover all the similar pieces, but we want to make sure that everything is very specific to what you're doing, and it's not kind of a broad brush approach, because there are some individual nuances. Okay. So these procedures that, that's the scope of what you're going to be doing to control the energy, the purpose, all right, identifying if we do this, what will happen with the equipment, the authorization, who can do it, the rules behind it, techniques for controlling any of the energy that might be there. Maybe there could be additional equipment or other apparatus that you might need to use. And then also the release of the program from its implementation. And then, God forbid, if there's any disciplinary action that might need to be done with an individual or an employee that might not be doing things properly or safely. So when we look at these, for example, we look at maybe a lockout tag out for an electrical box, for example, here. The implementation of it is placing the electrical disconnect in the off position, for example, and then applying the lockout and the tag, and then making sure the lock is secure, and then also making sure that the possibility of any energy is not available. So the electric is off, right? So it doesn't either start up the either piece of equipment or one just what you're trying to control energy wise. All right. So the sources of energy, we have different machinery, we have different operations that everybody might be involved with. So it could be electrical, it could be hydraulic, thermal, corrosive, it could be water-based, all kinds of things, flammable, for example. So each one of these has specific sources of energy that thus has different ways to manage the lockout tag out process. So from a procedural side, from a acknowledgement of what can happen if we don't consequently fully contain the energy and the hazard, that's where we want to make sure we're always evaluating that, because these things do change, but then also we have multiple versions of it. So the first part, what we do in our program is we prepare for a shutdown. That's basically just letting people know that in that area, what we're working on is what we're going to be doing. And that shut off and turn off for the machine and the equipment, that's the next step. So how are we doing that? Are we going to a localized shut off to the equipment? Are we doing a full shutdown, either electric or the power to that machine? Are we doing a complete type of shutdown? Again, isolating the machine or the equipment, can you do that? Can you take that off something that might be, are they combined with other processes or assembly? The next would be applying the lockout device. And these devices are obviously unique to their own, but also the thing is that these lockout devices, make sure you apply them correctly. There is a proper way to do these. It could be just a lock, but also some of these are an apparatus that actually goes around either a valve or something like that. The next step would be removing any stored energy. Now, this is kind of critical because of the fact that a lot of machinery or equipment or anything that is still there, you can still have stored energy. It could be water, it could be compression with either pneumatic or something like that. So once you remove that, then you need to verify that it is gone and there is no hazard present, right? So after we release from a lockout, we're working in the area, we're inspecting your tools and parts, making sure everything's fine. We're also making sure the work area, ensure employees are safe in their location, and notify all affected employees of the removal. So in the process, when we're doing this, is that whenever we're doing our work, the next piece is we have to do an advisory to make sure everybody knows that this is back in line. Because one, they want to make sure our employees are safe. but also that they're aware that they can operate equipment properly and at full capacity, right? So the lockout devices, they are all standardized. So we want to make sure that everybody in a lockout program are using the same equipment. We don't want to necessarily say, hey, here, use this red lock, but then someone else has their own type of lock that isn't the same. But we also want to make sure it's identified to the user. So my name will be on the tag or the lock and so forth, but it's also got to be obviously good equipment. It's not just going to fail by getting hit or struck gingerly or anything like that. But again, it's used specifically for the task of lockout and tag out. We don't want to just use a bike lock that you're using for when you came in for work today or something like that, right? So a lot of these materials and hardware, again, are very specific to the orientation of the lockout. So as I mentioned before, a valve cover and lock to the right, you're going to see that. It could be a plug-in device where you just have to use a lock measure for the end of a electrical cord for plugging in the device, okay? So some of these have to be, and they should be, in all a centralized location, so there's access to them. We don't want to have them in a, tucked away and only one person knows where they are. We want to know that everybody who's involved in the program knows where their equipment is and when it's available. So what's the tag out process? Tag out devices attached at the same time. And this again allows the employer to demonstrate who is doing the tag out, who's doing the lockout, and the safety equivalent to using the lockout tag out program. You're supposed to be able to show everybody, hey, this is who's been doing this. This is who's, I wouldn't say in charge, but who's the authorized person, right? We don't want it to be an unknown individual, because we want to be able to go to them and find out if there's something that we might need to know during this process of the lockout tag out. So obviously in some of these tags you might have a nice little picture, but obviously it's mainly to identify what department you're from and your name, because we want to make sure who's been involved with this equipment, okay? And it's real important because from a chain of custody, and that's basically the line of who's involved. If one person does one thing and another person does another, we want to make sure everybody's all on the same page for safety. So speaking of that as well, shift and personnel changes. We do have different setups for work where, it isn't necessarily 8 to 5. And so the equipment and stuff like that for either a shift change or personnel who leave from, whether it be a midnight shift to a day shift, we want to make sure the equipment's available. But then when something is locked out and it's left there through the next time, we want to make sure everybody's aware of that, so there's no confusion for the safety. So no one's trying to operate a piece of machinery or equipment or work in an area or environment that could be affected. So in developing your procedures for contractors, I'm sure not everybody has maintenance involved in their facilities at all times, but they might have to hire a contractor to come in and practice work or repair work to their equipment and so forth, but they should be practicing a lockout tag out program as well. It is something that I would encourage that everybody should know that they are doing that, because it also, again, affects your employees. Those are generally affected in that area. So who's doing what, when and where and how, and those key bits of information will make sure that everybody's safe throughout the process and that time when either the equipment and everything is in that lockout phase. So miscellaneous pieces to your program, procedures for removal of a lock when the person's not present. That's where one, I would say, if you have the situation of maybe a person went on vacation, or if another person is from, again, the shift change and stuff like that, you need to make sure that there's someone involved to notify these affected employees where the locks are, where they're being applied or removed, if there's a supervisor or an additional authorized person. So all this really needs to be communicated specifically and clearly, so nobody is negatively affected by it, okay? So group lockout and tag out, as mentioned before, everybody's exposed to the hazard, must lock out either on the equipment or on a lockout box. So this identifies who's involved. as well as those who can be affected. It's a great practice. Hopefully, everybody is using something like this, because if you're not, the awareness piece is it's not doing its job. So training. Training is probably, in any case of safety, is probably going to be the most effective way to make sure everybody's aware of what's going on. However, I guess the purpose of the training is so that everybody understands what the program's about, the Lockout Tag Out program. But then also the type of devices that they could see, as well as they shouldn't be messing with the devices if they're not supposed to, or if they're not authorized. So as we talked about before, there's authorized personnel, and then there's people who are just affected, or other, if you will. Those are those bystanders that might walk around in an area. So when we look at that training should be really clear and concise. But how does a clear and concise training, how is it really effective? And again, sometimes you have people who their learning and attitude toward whether it be an online training or whether it be even a in-person training. You want to make sure you're communicating to them that they know what's going on clearly and how they perceive things. So what we want to be covering is the types of energy, the magnitude of the energy sources. So again, it could be electrical. Are you in a high voltage situation? It could be pressure on air or water that you might be working around. I do a lot of work with our insureds. We have a lot of breweries that we insure. So we have different exposures there with the water and the pressure of their vessels. But then also we do have a lot of manufacturing. So similar again, electrical, what type of situation you have, you need to know how serious everything is. And also, again, what type of the devices to be expected, and what you'll have at your hands available to, whether it be a valve or electrical cord, etc. Okay. And so the training of it should be when everybody is there, when you're new to the company or new to your organization. But honestly, the retraining is crucial. Honestly, they are probably the best practices, annual retraining, but really it's crucial when there's a change in their job assignment. Maybe they're going to a new machine, or even a change in the energy control. So again, those type of procedures and retraining need to be updated as often as possible. And then obviously periodic inspection reveals that there are any issues or inadequacies to employees' knowledge. So what basically that means is, are you really informed enough, or do you really recall all the training that you were supposed to have been having? I want to make sure that you really can effectively do your job. So now I don't think anybody has classes like this. It should be all, all exciting and not sleeping. But when we're doing training, it should be effective. It should be retained, and people need to have a good attitude about what they're doing. Safety is real important. I do what I do because I believe in making sure that, I want people to be successful at what they're doing, but also in a safe manner, because if it's not in a safe manner, you're not going to be able to do it very long, right? So as I mentioned, some of the Lockout Tag Out, your trainings, you can do them internally. The Osha e-tool that I believe Carrie here put in this slide is a good opportunity for training. However, to do it, online training, who all would really like in-person training versus, an online training? Where do we really retain all that? And, I would say whatever is the most effective for your individuals, that's what you want to stick with, because that's what you're going to get out of your program the best. So, but when you do that, are you sure you tagged everything out? And then you say, we'll find out. So obviously, clear and concise training and actually, adherence to kind of the rules and expectations, those are critical, because you can't have people kind of just willy-nilly doing their job, especially in a safety environment that, could pose a fatal hazard in many cases. So the fourth and final piece to the program is an annual inspection. And that's basically just a review of everything that you're doing and inspecting it, making sure that all the criteria to the program concise and updated, to be honest with you, because again, we go back to the fact that your equipment might change periodically. You might update it, might be obsolete. Maybe there's a renovation that you're doing. You're moving electrical to a certain area. So there's a lot of things that kind of happen, but we want to make sure we're reviewing the program, the procedures, and the people involved, that they know that the program's up to date. They know that the changes have been made. And so going forward, there isn't any mishap, right? So if we know this, why are we having so much of a lockout tag out issue in the top 10? And is it maybe because they don't have enough training? Do they not understand how important it is? Are they in a hurry? Don't want other to bother them? No accountability. It will only take a second. So I live honestly by one saying, and I use this in pretty much all of what I do. It's called never rush, never hurry. In this case, when you're training, you're not supposed to go through training super fast in a way that, your individuals aren't retaining it. They're not valuing the purpose of why they're supposed to be learning this type of process. It obviously is something to affect others. If it's bothering me or it's bothering somebody else, we just want to make sure the right attitude is there at all times, because especially when we're trying to do stuff to make sure that there's no hazard, there's no injury involved. Take your time. There's no reason to take shortcuts in trying to do a lockout or a tag out program, because when, I guess the old adage back in school, you had a circle of kids, 20 kids, and one kid said a phrase and passed it around and passed it around. Is it the same thing by the end? So if we don't clearly communicate everything, the instruction at the very end could be completely different, and we're going to have something bad happen. So like I say, never rush, never hurry. OSHA has a lot of good tools. BWC has templates available that you could utilize. Obviously, my company with Wichert, what we do is we obviously assist our clients in many different ways, such as this. But Lockout Tag Out is a program that isn't super hard, but it's also something that has to be done because of the fact that if you're not doing it, the clear communication of an opportunity to save somebody's life or properly control a hazard, the energy that's involved with equipment, if we don't do it correctly, bad things unfortunately will happen. So, as you can tell, being in the top 10, number 6, that's pretty significant. So, but with that, anybody have any questions, thoughts, or comments?
So Tracy, we did get one comment, and I put my response onto that too. Lance said, can't you do the annual inspection and audit as a training activity with groups of authorized employees? They find that most effective. I put in the chat for everyone too that could be part of it. So you can do the annual inspection as part of a training, but you want to make sure that in addition to that, you're also reviewing each of the procedures. So each of the procedures have to be reviewed, and the actual written program has to be reviewed. So yeah, that's a good way to do part of it. I've seen folks where they do all the procedures as a group too. That's okay if you do that as part of your training. But you just want to make sure you're covering all 3 parts. You're reviewing your training, you're reviewing your written procedures, and your written program. So you want to do that.
One of those things with a lot of kind of the overlap approach there, it actually goes a long way for your perpetuation for succession of your individuals, whether you're trying to bring a kind of an individual into a supervisory role and things like that. That is a good idea, because everybody, to be honest with you, sometimes just knowing your role isn't necessarily the best vision of a program. Knowing all the aspects does provide a lot better and a clear understanding of what should be expected to happen, but also in a response of an emergency, to be honest with you, because if you don't know what should happen, you're standing there kind of looking like, well, I did my thing, I don't know what else to do. You're there to honestly be the goodwill to your peers and the company that you work for. So you know, everybody should be trained at the fullest if possible. So yeah.
Yep, good stuff. All right, if you have any other questions, you can either unmute or you can put them in the chat. I'm going to put the snow and ice video that I'd mentioned at the beginning, the link to that in the chat, so you have that. And then I'll put my email too. So if you have any questions or you want to send your OSHA log or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me and we can go from there. I didn't hyperlink my email, but you know it. So Stephanie, did you have anything that you wanted to close up with? I know we know our speaker. I'm still working on some of the topic stuff, but I know we have that.
Okay, do you see it? I did pop it up in there.
Yep.
Okay,
yep,
perfect.
You're good.
Yeah, so we will resume again after the first of the year with our virtual meetings on the third Tuesday of every month. There will be 1 month where BWC is hosting one of those mega meetings again. So we'll get that up on the calendar for you as well. But our next Zoom meeting will be Tuesday, January 18th. We will have that up for registration soon, probably within the next week or so. You'll be able to go online and register for that. And as Carrie mentioned, we will be virtual through June of next year. As soon as we know what's going on for the next fiscal year, we promise we will share the details with you from BWC should there be any extra information. We will share those details with you. And again, the semi-annual reports, I know I get a lot of questions, so those are on hold as well. So I appreciate those of you that have reached out asking if we are doing those. We are not. Those are on hold while we are virtual. But if you have questions, our contact information is there. Please feel free to reach out to us.
Awesome. All right. I think we're all done then. You guys get out a little bit early. That's another nice part about the virtual one. Make sure you check on your Lockout Tag Out. Stephanie, when she sends out the link to the recording of this, we're going to send out the slides, but we're also going to send out, I have a really good audit sheet, and I'll send that over to Stephanie and she can send it to you. So if you already have a good written program or you feel like you have a good written program, or a good program overall, use this, and it goes through the standard. Use this to audit your program. So that would be a good activity for 2022. So thank you guys so much, and we look forward to seeing you in January next year.
Happy holidays.
Hey, everybody.